assigned a senior diplomat, former ambassador, to work with us in Timor-Leste as our advisor on membership accession. So we will be, and yesterday I was very pleased that Prime Minister Hun Sen and this morning the Foreign Minister reassured me very categorically that Cambodia also very strongly support Timor-Leste membership. In our own target, which we imposed on ourselves in Timor-Leste to force us to work harder, to build our institutions, improve our economy, we set a target of 2012 to join ASEAN. Indonesia will take over the presidency of ASEAN in 2011 and 2012 Cambodia. It will be great that it will be Indonesia and Cambodia that will share the process of our formal membership. But if it doesn't happen in 2012, we also wouldn't be too impatient. We would understand the agenda of ASEAN. Yes, I do believe that ASEAN Secretariat in particular, but then civil society in each ASEAN country can contribute much more through initiatives like this to address some of the conflict still existing in within each country and in some tensions between neighboring countries. Because for ASEAN to acquire an even stronger voice internationally, it has to be a solid organization, and to be proactive, it has to address the challenges that we face internally. And that's why we also, in Timor-Leste, we are very pragmatic, realistic, and we say, I said only a week or 2 weeks ago in a meeting with cabinet members, with our Council of State, an advisory body to the President, and I said, in relation to membership in ASEAN, with problems existing in ASEAN, would they want another member, Timor-Leste, if we do not continue to consolidate peace and economically? Of course, if I were an ASEAN leader, I would say politely, maybe the East Timorese should wait a bit longer. So I challenge our people, we must consolidate peace, make it a lasting, permanent status of Timor, continue to perform economically if we want to be fully integrated in ASEAN. So we challenge ourselves, because ASEAN has enough problems of winning its borders, some of the member countries. And it would be unfair for us to impose ourselves in circumstances that would not be terribly good for ASEAN. Some of the problems exist in ASEAN countries, particularly in the Philippines, in the south, decades old, and southern Thailand. And some of these problems, I believe that only with a lot of steady engagement, patience, can be resolved. And sometimes some of us are afraid of, or because we are too proud, we do not want international assistance, like international mediation. Well, in my own country in 2006, I was only foreign minister at the time, but had a meeting with my colleagues when the problems happened in the country, within the army, the police, and some people are very proud. We should not ask international assistance. And, but I said, our first responsibility is not to our own pride. Our first responsibility is to ensure safety, security of the people. Can we deliver that on our own? I ask the question. If we don't, then let us help from friends. And I am a patriot like anybody else on earth. But for me, sometimes I find silly some of the debate, discussions, outbursts of nationalism, rejecting international mediation or rejecting a UN presence. I have no difficulties with it. I have no problem seeing Australian troops, New Zealand troops, or UN police driving around the city. They are, the UN police, they are the worst drivers in the world. More than once, I almost had a clash with a UN car coming opposite direction, but that's the worst you can say. So the problem sometimes is that when within our own countries, difficult to find people who are not involved one way or another in the conflicts. Difficult to find someone who is completely neutral. Particularly, the smaller the community, the more difficult to find neutral people. So it's not bad to have sometimes a Norwegian, a harmless Norwegian come in and help, or a harmless Finnish. The Indonesians, among the proudest people in Asia, and a few years ago you couldn't talk about Aceh to the Indonesians. You would have an immediate emotional reaction. But then, through the mediation, first very, very discreet work of a Geneva-based group called Center for Humanitarian Dialogue, and then later came Martti Ahtisaari, President of Finland. They resolved the problem of Aceh. So some of the problems is good to have a international mediation. Sometimes discreet, sometimes unnecessarily more visible.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. From Faculty of Education, majoring in English, TESOL. My name is
Murat, a senior student of this university. Well, it's a profound pleasure that I have joined this special event. It's a great pleasure for me to join this peace conference. You know, as I have seen the many revolutions and conflicts throughout history, well, the problem is happened when the gaps of the rich and the poor grows stronger. So to me, so how could you suggest me to do, and all the people in the world to do, and to bring the gap between the rich and the poor closer in order to make peace of the world? Thank you very much.
Before I answer that, I just want to complete my thought on the previous issue. Often the reluctance of the state to deal with minority problems is proportional, corresponding to the level of development of the institutions, culture of democracy in that country. The more self-confident a country is about its viability, its existence, the more it is open to compromise on this. Look at, well, the United States is an extreme example. How many languages people speak in New York alone? Take aside the UN, people who live in Manhattan, more than 100 languages. Spanish is not yet an official language in the United States, but even politicians today want to speak Spanish because of the number of voters Spanish speaking. Does anyone in Washington, in the Congress, worry about forbidding, no, they should not speak Spanish, this is an English country? No, quite the contrary, even presidential candidates want to learn Spanish to win over the Spanish voters. And why that? Well, it is a very, very confident state, unshakable. They can afford all of these luxuries. In a smaller scale, in size, Australia, we have a national radio programs, TV programs in numerous languages, I don't know how many languages now, addressed to minority communities in Australia. And why they do that? Because they feel overconfident. The state is solid. But when you are small, vulnerable, new nation state, yes, it's understandable. Leaders are more, but it's a catch-22. But if you don't address the sensitivities, the feelings, the demands of a minority, well, the state will be weaker because they will fight and undermine even more the state. So that's the dilemma. The question yes, you are right in pointing to the gap existing between emerging leaders, emerging elites in countries. Well, that happens in most of our countries around the world. What are the ways to address, to prevent that? Civil society, media, strong parliamentary practices, where the parliament do their work, their role, overseeing the executive branch, when civil society leaders speak out, media speak out on injustices, but above all, national leaders. I give you the example of Brazil, one of, in the past at least, known as the most unequal society in the world, with extreme rich, very, very small number, and extreme poor, the largest. But under President Lula of Brazil, poverty, the population of almost 200 million, in the last 8-10 years, poverty has decreased by 30 to 40 million people. So under a leadership of that nature, yes, you can close the gap. It boils down to the quality of leaders. And the quality of leaders that we have depends very much on the electorate. So the final arbiters, the judges, are the people who elect us. In 2012, we have a new election in my own country. And it's going to be very, very telling election, because the people in 2012 in the country will judge those who today are in office. We have a political system whereby the president does not have executive authority. We have a more or less similar system to the French, the Portuguese semi-presidential system. The government is the president is directly elected by the people, but separate from the parliament, separate from the government. So I do not have day-to-day responsibilities on the conduct of the affairs of the country, except on security matters. My responsibility is to promote peace, security in the country, national unity, and so on. The day-to-day management of the country belongs to the government. And we all will be judged. My term ends in 2012. At this stage at least, my mind is I will not run again, although I'm able to, under the Constitution, to run again. But I'm not terribly interested. And, but those in the government, in the parliament, they all want to be re-elected. And they will be judged. And they will be judged by one important factor today: the perception of corruption, of waste, of mismanagement. And the people are very aware. So they will be the judges. I hope I answered your question satisfactorily. Next.
Okay, thank you. The President has a very tight schedule, and we have time for only one more question.
Yeah. Because I have a domestic issue question. Have you had success in convincing people that domestic violence is a national problem, that it's an issue of civic responsibility?
In the sense of that, have I convinced the people that domestic violence is a national problem? I don't know whether people have this awareness now, but I do speak about it ad nauseum all the time. And I have to say, yes, it is a pervasive problem in my country. Wherever I go, in the villages, almost always I ask, is there domestic violence here? And almost always the answer is yes. And sometimes I put the question differently. I ask the community leader, as I walk with him, I asked him, is there violence in this community? He says, no, we don't have violence, only some domestic violence. It means that for many people, and this is not an isolated answer, for many, well, domestic violence is not really violence. It's just between husband and wife or parents and kids. But for us, it is a serious problem. It's a national problem. And both UNICEF, the United Nations in general, the government, myself, we speak out again and again. There are more cases because in the past there were no information or no mechanisms of reporting. So, but now there is more frequent reports from women in particular to the police, to the authorities about domestic violence. One way to address this is, as with time, the empowerment of the women. Because sometimes it happens that I have been witness. A woman goes and complains to the police. The police detain the individual concerned and he might end up in jail. But he is the only person who is earning money for the family or has a shop. And so who is going to look after the family? So that is a tragedy. And the only way is more education to the women, more empowerment of the women, not only politically but economically. And in my country, I've been very outspoken on this, and I often encourage people not to vote for male politicians. Because when you look at our history, who dragged people into violence? Not women, men. And that's not only our country, I think throughout the world, throughout history. Maybe for a change, one day we should, every male person in the world retire and let women run the countries. Maybe we'll have less wars. And one woman, a barefoot, simple, illiterate woman in one village many years ago in 2001, because I never forgot her statement in that meeting. And she was very angry with the past of violence. She said, men always drag us into violence. If this continues, we will not vote for any male man for the parliament. So, but I have to confess it's still a big problem in my country, and I don't know whether we have reached the people in that this is a national problem. This is a national responsibility. We must stop this.
Your Excellency, thank you for a very informative speech and very clear answers to good questions. I also want to thank all of those who participated in the question and answer period. And thank you to the rest of you for coming. I think we all speak here a strong hand, and we move on to the next part of the program.
I thank you again, Mr. President, and also thank you, Dr. Tran, for being our moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, in token of appreciation for visiting our university, PUC, Dr. Jia Samjantan, PUC President, would like to present a gift to His Excellency Dr. Jose Ramos-Horta. Our special event in welcoming His Excellency Dr. Jose Ramos-Horta, President of Timor-Leste and Nobel Peace Prize laureate, and delegation now come to an end. I thank you very much for joining the program, and may you have a nice afternoon.